The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the bustling streets of downtown Los Angeles. Nestled among the towering skyscrapers and neon lights was La Lumiere, a restaurant so exclusive that its name was whispered like a secret among the city's elite. Its sleek, modern facade was adorned with cascading ivy and soft, ambient lighting that spilled onto the sidewalk, inviting only the most discerning patrons. Inside, the air was thick with the aroma of truffles, aged wine, and the faint hum of clinking glasses. The dining room was a masterpiece of minimalist design. Polished marble floors, low-hanging chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. It was a place where power brokers, celebrities, and billionaires came to see and be seen. A sanctuary for those who could afford its exorbitant prices. Among the staff was Alex, a 28-year-old waiter with a sharp wit and an even sharper tongue. He had been working at La Lumiere for 3 years, long enough to know the regulars by name, but not long enough to lose his disdain for the entitled clientele. To him, the restaurant was a symbol of everything wrong with the world. A playground for the rich while people like him struggled to make ends meet. Alex had dreams, of course. He wanted to be a writer, to tell stories that mattered, but for now, he was stuck in a tuxedo, serving overpriced meals to people who barely noticed he existed. Tonight, though, something felt different. The air was charged with an unspoken tension, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The evening started like any other. Alex moved through the dining room with practiced ease, balancing trays of champagne and plates of seared scallops. He flashed polite smiles at the guests, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't shake the frustration that had been building inside him for weeks. Earlier that day, he'd received another rejection letter from a literary magazine, the 10th one this year. The editor's words echoed in his mind. Asterisk, your work lacks depth and originality. Asterisk, it stung more than he cared to admit. As he refilled a glass of Pinot Noir for a tech mogul who didn't even glance his way, Alex felt the familiar bitterness rise in his throat. These people have everything, he thought, and they don't even appreciate it. Then, he saw him. Elon Musk, the man himself, sitting at a corner table, engrossed in conversation with a group of executives. Alex had heard the rumors that Musk sometimes dined at La Lumiere, but he'd never actually seen him in person. There he was, though, dressed in a simple black shirt and jeans, looking every bit the billionaire genius the world knew him to be. Alex's stomach churned. He couldn't explain why, but the sight of Musk filled him with a sudden, irrational anger. Maybe it was the way Musk laughed, loud and unrestrained, as if he didn't have a care in the world. Maybe it was the way the other diners glanced at him with a mix of awe and envy, as if he were some kind of god. Or maybe it was just the culmination of all the frustration Alex had been feeling, bubbling to the surface in that moment. Without thinking, Alex marched over to Musk's table, his heart pounding in his chest. The executives fell silent as he approached, their eyes narrowing in confusion. Musk looked up, his expression calm but curious. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice steady. Alex hesitated for a split second, but then the words came pouring out, sharp and unrelenting. "This restaurant isn't for people like you," he spat, his voice trembling with anger. "It's for people who actually care about something other than themselves. People who don't just throw money around to show off. People who—" He stopped abruptly, realizing what he'd just done. The entire dining room had gone silent, every eye fixed on him. Musk's expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. Alex felt his face flush with embarrassment and regret. He had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Before Musk could respond, Alex turned on his heel and stormed out of the dining room, his hands shaking. He didn't stop until he reached the staff break room, where he collapsed into a chair, his mind racing. What had he done? He had just insulted one of the most powerful men in the world. And for what? A moment of petty anger? He buried his face in his hands, trying to steady his breathing. He knew he'd probably be fired, if not worse. But as the initial shock wore off, a strange sense of relief washed over him. For the first time in years, he had spoken his mind. Consequences be damned. Little did Alex know, his outburst was about to set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. Musk, far from being offended, was intrigued. He had seen the fire in Alex's eyes, the raw emotion behind his words. It was a rare thing to encounter someone who wasn't afraid to speak their truth, even in the face of power. And so, as the night wore on, Musk made a decision. One that would bring him and Alex together in a way neither of them could have anticipated. But for now, Alex sat alone in the break room, unaware of the storm he had just unleashed. The night was far from over, and the real story was only just beginning. The next morning, Alex woke up with a knot in his stomach. He had barely slept, his mind replaying the scene at the restaurant over and over again. He half expected to find a message from his manager telling him not to bother coming back to work, but his phone was silent. Reluctantly, he dragged himself out of bed, dressed in his uniform, and headed to La Lumiere. The walk felt longer than usual, each step weighed down by the dread of what awaited him. When he arrived, the restaurant was eerily quiet, the usual morning bustle replaced by a tense silence. His manager, a stern woman named Claire, was waiting for him at the entrance. Her arms were crossed, and her expression was unreadable. "Alex," she said, her voice clipped, "we need to talk." He followed her to her office, his heart pounding. Claire closed the door behind them and turned to face him. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she asked, her tone sharp. Alex opened his mouth to apologize, but she cut him off. "Elon Musk is one of our most valued clients. Do you know how much business he brings to this restaurant? And you insulted him in front of everyone." Alex looked down, his face burning with shame. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "I don't know what came over me." Claire sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "I should fire you on the spot," she said. "But for some reason, Mr. Musk has requested that you keep your job." Alex's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What?" he asked. Claire nodded. "He said he found your honesty refreshing. But don't think this means you're off the hook. One more misstep, and you're out. Understand?" Alex nodded, still too stunned to speak. As the days passed, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Musk's reaction didn't make sense. Why would someone like him defend a waiter who had publicly humiliated him? The question gnawed at him, fueling a growing sense of unease. He tried to focus on his work, but his mind kept drifting back to that night, to the look in Musk's eyes when he had confronted him. There had been something there, something Alex couldn't quite put his finger on. Curiosity? Amusement? Or something darker? Meanwhile, the restaurant was buzzing with rumors. The other staff members whispered about Alex's outburst, some admiring his courage, others mocking his recklessness. A few even speculated that Musk had taken a personal interest in him, though no one could say why. Alex did his best to ignore the gossip, but it was impossible. Everywhere he went, he felt their eyes on him, their judgment and curiosity pressing down on him like a weight. One evening, as Alex was clearing a table, he noticed a man sitting alone at the bar. He was in his mid-40s, with sharp features and a calculating gaze. Alex recognized him immediately. It was Peter Thiel, one of Musk's closest associates and a regular at La Lumiere. Thiel was sipping a glass of whiskey, his eyes fixed on Alex. When their gazes met, Thiel raised his glass in a silent toast, a small, enigmatic smile playing on his lips. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He quickly looked away, but the encounter left him unsettled. What did Thiel know? And why was he watching him? The tension came to a head a few nights later. Alex was working the late shift, the dining room nearly empty except for a few stragglers. He was wiping down a table when he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Alex, isn't it?" He turned to see Musk standing there, his hands in his pockets, his expression calm but intense. Alex froze, his heart racing. "Mr. Musk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Musk smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've been thinking about our little conversation," he said. "You're an interesting guy. Most people wouldn't have the guts to say what you did." Alex swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. I didn't mean to offend you," he stammered. Musk waved a hand dismissively. "Offend me? No, no. You intrigue me. I like people who speak their mind. It's a rare quality these days." He paused, studying Alex with a penetrating gaze. "Tell me, what do you want out of life? Surely, You don't plan to be a waiter forever. The question caught Alex off guard. He hesitated, then said, I want to be a writer, but it's not easy. Musk nodded, as if he had expected this answer. Writing is a tough business, he said, but talent like yours shouldn't go to waste. Maybe I can help you. Alex's eyes widened. Help me? How? Musk smiled again, this time with a hint of mischief. Let's just say I have a proposition for you. Meet me tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll talk. Before Alex could respond, Musk turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, his mind reeling. The next day, Alex arrived at the restaurant with a mix of excitement and apprehension. He didn't know what to expect, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change. Musk was already there, seated at the same corner table. He gestured for Alex to join him. Sit, he said. We have a lot to discuss. Alex sat down, his hands trembling slightly. Musk leaned forward, his expression serious. I'll cut to the chase, he said. I'm starting a new project, something big, and I need someone like you. Someone with passion, with fire. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo. What do you say? Are you in? Alex's mind raced. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to escape the monotony of his life and pursue his dreams. But something about Musk's offer felt off. There was a calculating edge to his words, a sense that he was playing a game Alex didn't fully understand. Still, the temptation was too great to ignore. I'm in, Alex said, his voice steady. Musk smiled, a satisfied gleam in his eyes. Good. You won't regret it. But as the days turned into weeks, Alex began to realize that he had made a deal with the devil. Musk's project was unlike anything he had imagined, a high-stakes venture that blurred the lines between ambition and obsession. Alex found himself drawn into a world of power, money, and manipulation, where every decision came with a price. He tried to hold on to his principles, but the deeper he got, the harder it became. The lines between right and wrong began to blur, and Alex found himself questioning everything he thought he knew. The breaking point came one night, during a private meeting at Musk's mansion. Alex had been invited to discuss the next phase of the project, but what he witnessed there shook him to his core. Musk's true intentions were revealed, and Alex realized that he had been nothing more than a pawn in a much larger game. The man he had once admired was not the visionary he had thought him to be, but a master manipulator, willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goals. Alex knew he had to get out, but it was too late. He was in too deep, and the consequences of his choices were about to come crashing down on him. The tension was palpable, the air thick with the weight of what was to come. Alex stood at the edge of a precipice, his future hanging in the balance. The choices he made next would determine not only his fate but the fate of those around him. And as the storm gathered on the horizon, he knew that there was no turning back. The night was thick with tension as Alex stepped into Elon Musk's sprawling mansion, a modern architectural marvel perched on the edge of a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of salt water and pine, but it did little to calm the storm brewing inside him. He had been summoned for what Musk called a critical briefing, but the cryptic tone of the invitation had left Alex on edge. As he walked through the grand entrance, the sound of his footsteps echoed against the polished marble floors, each step amplifying the unease in his chest. The mansion was eerily quiet, the usual hum of activity replaced by an oppressive silence. Alex followed the sound of faint voices down a long hallway, his heart pounding with every step. He reached a set of double doors, slightly ajar, and paused. Through the gap, he could see Musk standing at the head of a large conference table, surrounded by a group of high-profile figures. Tech moguls, investors, and politicians. Their faces were grim, their voices low and urgent. Alex hesitated, unsure whether to interrupt, but before he could decide, Musk looked up and spotted him. "Ah, Alex," Musk said, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Come in. We've been waiting for you." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Alex. He stepped inside, feeling the weight of their stares like a physical force. Musk gestured to an empty seat at the table. "Sit. We have much to discuss." Alex obeyed, his mind racing. He had no idea what was going on, but the atmosphere in the room was suffocating, charged with a sense of impending doom. Musk began to speak, his tone calm but commanding. As you all know, we're on the brink of something monumental, a project that will redefine the future of humanity. But with great power comes great risk, and we must be prepared for the consequences. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room before settling on Alex. That's where you come in, Alex. You've proven yourself to be resourceful, passionate, and unafraid to speak your mind. Qualities we need now more than ever. Alex's stomach churned. He had no idea what Musk was talking about, but the intensity in his eyes was unnerving. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Musk smiled, but it was devoid of warmth. "We're about to launch a new initiative, a global network that will give us unprecedented control over information, resources, and even human behavior. But there are those who would try to stop us, people who fear progress, who cling to outdated ideologies. We need someone like you to help us navigate the challenges ahead." Alex's mind reeled. This wasn't the visionary project he had signed up for. This was something darker, something dangerous. He glanced around the table, searching for any sign of hesitation or doubt among the others, but their faces were unreadable. They were all in on it, whatever it was. "You're talking about controlling people," Alex said, his voice trembling. "That's not progress. That's tyranny." Musk's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating expression. "Tyranny? No, Alex. This is evolution. Survival. The world is on the brink of collapse, and we're the only ones who can save it. But we can't do it alone. We need you." Alex shook his head, his heart pounding. "I can't be a part of this," he said, rising from his seat. "This isn't what I signed up for." The room erupted into chaos. Voices rose in protest, some pleading with Alex to reconsider, others accusing him of betrayal. Musk remained silent, his eyes locked on Alex, a flicker of something dangerous in their depths. Finally, he raised a hand, and the room fell silent once more. "Very well," Musk said, his voice icy. "If you won't join us, then you're against us, and we can't afford to have enemies." Before Alex could react, the doors burst open, and a group of armed guards stormed in, their weapons trained on him. Alex's breath caught in his throat as panic surged through him. He looked around, desperate for a way out, but there was none. The guards closed in, their faces expressionless, their movements precise. "You can't do this," Alex said, his voice shaking. "You can't just silence anyone who disagrees with you." Musk stood, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry it had to come to this, Alex, but you left me no choice." He nodded to the guards, and they moved in, grabbing Alex by the arms. He struggled, but it was no use. They dragged him out of the room, his mind spinning with fear and disbelief. As the doors closed behind him, he caught one last glimpse of Musk, standing at the head of the table, his face illuminated by the cold, sterile light of the chandelier above. The guards took Alex to a secluded wing of the mansion, where they locked him in a small, windowless room. The walls were bare, the only furniture a single chair and a table. Alex sank into the chair, his mind racing. He had to get out of here, but how? He had no allies, no weapons, no way to contact the outside world. He was completely alone. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Alex couldn't tell. The room was a void, devoid of time or space. He tried to stay calm, to think clearly, but the weight of his situation pressed down on him like a suffocating blanket. Finally, the door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. It was Peter Thiel, his expression unreadable. "You've made a mess of things, Alex," he said, his voice calm but laced with menace. "But it's not too late to fix this." Alex looked up, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" Thiel smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "Musk is willing to give you one last chance. Join us, and all will be forgiven. Refuse, and, well, let's just say you won't like the consequences." Alex's heart pounded. He knew what Thiel was offering, a chance to save himself, but at what cost? He thought of his dreams, his principles, the life he had wanted to build. Could he really betray everything he believed in to save his own skin? The silence stretched on, thick and heavy, as Alex wrestled with his decision. Finally, he looked up, his eyes blazing with defiance. "No," he said, his voice steady. "I won't do it." Till's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold fury. "Very well," he said. "You've made your choice." He turned and walked out, leaving Alex alone once more. As the door slammed shut, Alex felt a surge of adrenaline. He knew he was in danger, but he also knew he had done the right thing. Whatever happened next, he would face it on his own terms. The room was silent, the air thick with tension, as Alex braced himself for what was to come. The storm was here, and there was no turning back. The days that followed were a blur for Alex. After his defiant refusal to join Musk's project, he was kept in isolation, cut off from the outside world. The room became his prison, its walls closing in on him as the weight of his decision settled heavily on his shoulders. He replayed the events in his mind over and over, questioning whether he had made the right choice. The fear of what Musk might do to him gnawed at his sanity, but beneath the fear was a stubborn resolve. He had stood by his principles, even when it cost him everything. That had to count for something, didn't it? Meanwhile, outside the mansion, the world was beginning to unravel. News of Musk's secret project had leaked, though the details were murky. Whispers of a global network designed to control information and manipulate behavior spread like wildfire, sparking outrage and panic. Protests erupted in major cities, with people demanding answers and accountability. Musk's once untouchable reputation began to crack under the weight of public scrutiny. His allies distanced themselves, and his enemies seized the opportunity to strike. The media, once his greatest cheerleaders, now turned against him, painting him as a power-hungry tyrant. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was tense. Musk's inner circle was in disarray, their carefully laid plans crumbling before their eyes. Peter Thiel, ever the strategist, tried to salvage the situation, but even he could see that the tide had turned. "We need to contain this," he said during a heated meeting. "If we don't act fast, everything we've built will fall apart." Musk, however, seemed oddly calm, almost detached. "Let them talk," he said, his voice cold. "They'll see soon enough that they need us. They always do." But not everyone shared his confidence. Some of the investors and executives began to question their involvement, their loyalty wavering under the pressure. The cracks in Musk's empire were widening, and it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. For Alex, the turning point came unexpectedly. One night, as he sat in his dimly lit cell, the door creaked open. A figure slipped inside, a young woman with sharp features and a determined expression. She introduced herself as Sarah, a former employee of Musk's who had grown disillusioned with his methods. "I've been watching you," she said, her voice low. "I know what you did, and I want to help you." Alex was skeptical at first, but desperation outweighed caution. "What do you mean?" he asked. Sarah glanced over her shoulder before answering. "There's a group of us, people who've seen the truth about Musk. We're working to expose him, but we need your help. You're the only one who's stood up to him. People will listen to you." Alex hesitated, torn between hope and fear. Could he trust her? Was this another one of Musk's traps? But as he looked into her eyes, he saw something genuine, a spark of defiance that mirrored his own. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Sarah smiled, a flicker of relief crossing her face. "We need you to tell your story. The world needs to know what's really going on here." With Sarah's help, Alex was smuggled out of the mansion under the cover of darkness. The escape was fraught with tension, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a possible alarm. But they made it out, disappearing into the night like ghosts. For the first time in weeks, Alex felt a glimmer of hope. He wasn't alone anymore. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Alex and Sarah worked tirelessly to gather evidence, reaching out to journalists, activists, and whistleblowers. The story they uncovered was even more shocking than Alex had imagined. A web of corruption, manipulation, and unchecked ambition that stretched across the globe. When the truth finally broke, it sent shockwaves through the world. Musk's empire, once thought invincible, began to crumble under the weight of its own hubris. For Alex, the aftermath was bittersweet. He had played a crucial role in exposing Musk, but the cost had been high. His life would never be the same. He was hailed as a hero by some, a traitor by others. The media hounded him, demanding interviews and answers, but he kept his distance, retreating to a quiet cabin in the mountains to process everything that had happened. The nightmares lingered, the memories of his time in the mansion haunting his dreams. But amidst the pain, there was also a sense of peace. He had done the right thing, even when it was hard. And that, he realized, was what truly mattered. As for Musk, the fallout was devastating. His reputation was in tatters, his empire dismantled piece by piece. He retreated from the public eye, his once boundless ambition reduced to ashes. In the end, he was left with nothing but the weight of his own choices. The world moved on, as it always does. But the events of that fateful night left an indelible mark on everyone involved. For Alex, it was a reminder of the power of integrity, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And for the rest of the world, it was a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. The dust eventually settled, but the scars remained. For Alex, life after the storm was a strange mix of relief and unease. He had escaped Musk's clutches and played a pivotal role in exposing the truth, but the weight of what he had endured lingered. The quiet cabin in the mountains became his sanctuary, a place where he could finally breathe and begin to piece together the fragments of his life. The nightmares didn't stop. Visions of that windowless room, Musk's cold gaze, and the suffocating silence still haunted him, but they became less frequent over time. Writing became his therapy. He poured his emotions onto the page, crafting stories that explored themes of power, morality, and the resilience of the human spirit. His work, once rejected for lacking depth, now resonated with a raw authenticity that readers couldn't ignore. Slowly but surely, he began to rebuild his life, one word at a time. Sarah, the woman who had risked everything to help him, became a close friend and confidant. Together, they worked to support other whistleblowers and activists, using their experiences to shine a light on corruption and injustice. They knew the fight was far from over, but they also knew they weren't alone. The movement they had helped spark continued to grow, fueled by the courage of ordinary people who refused to stay silent. It was a small comfort, but it was enough to keep them going. As for Elon Musk, his fall from grace was as dramatic as his rise. Stripped of his power and influence, he became a recluse, a shadow of the man who had once been hailed as a visionary. The legal battles dragged on for years, draining his resources and tarnishing his legacy. In the end, he was left with nothing but the weight of his own choices. Some said he deserved it, while others pitted him, but few could deny the lessons his story held. It was a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the fragility of power. The broader impact of the scandal was profound. It sparked a global conversation about ethics in technology, the concentration of power, and the importance of accountability. Governments around the world began to tighten regulations, and corporations faced increased scrutiny. People started to question the systems they had once taken for granted, demanding transparency and fairness. It was a slow and often frustrating process, but it was a step in the right direction. The world had been shaken, but it had also been awakened. For Alex, the journey was far from easy, but it was worth it. He had lost a lot. His job, his sense of security, even a part of himself. But he had also gained something invaluable, the knowledge that he had stood up for what he believed in, no matter the cost. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was his ending, and he was proud of it. As he sat on the porch of his cabin one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The world was still flawed, still messy, but it was also full of hope. And that, he realized, was enough. The story of Alex and Elon Musk serves as a reminder of the complexities of human nature. It's a tale of ambition and integrity, of power and vulnerability, of choices and consequences. It challenges us to reflect on our own values and the systems we uphold. In a world that often rewards greed and manipulation, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But as Alex's story shows, even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of light, a chance to make a difference, to stand up for what's right, and to find redemption. As we close this chapter, let's take a moment to reflect on the lessons we've learned. Let's think about the choices we make and the impact they have on the world around us. And let's remember that no matter how small or insignificant we may feel, We all have the power to create change. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and never stop fighting for what you believe in.